Countless Christians over 50 are unknowingly committing a sin that could lead them to eternal torment. At an age rich with wisdom and experience, many believe their faith is secure, yet they fall prey to a subtle error. Could it be that their souls, hardened by years of unaddressed wounds, are no longer pure? An elderly woman, after a chilling near-death experience, returns to reveal this sin along with a direct warning from Jesus himself. What is this warning? What is this one sin that stands above the rest? Stay until the end to uncover the truth. Comment Amen to seek God's grace, and subscribe to the channel to join thousands standing firm in faith. My name is Diana, a 58-year-old woman whose life is cloaked in solitude and chronic pain. Illness binds me to my home, where I sit by the window, watching neighbors pass while nurturing my garden's roses and lilies. 2 years ago, my husband vanished without explanation, leaving a chasm in my heart that no amount of time could fill. My children, once my greatest joy, now live oceans away, their voices rare on the phone, their faces fading into memories of fleeting video calls. My modest pension barely covers my needs, but I'm blessed with a young assistant whose gentle care helps me dress, walk, and endure my aches. Her kindness is a lifeline, her smile a rare light in my shadowed days. Despite my struggles, my Catholic faith remains my anchor. Every Sunday I attend Mass, and I pray the Rosary 3 times daily, each bead a quiet vow to stay near God. Yet beneath my devotion festers a deep wound, a sorrow I've carried for 10 years. After my mother's death, bitter disputes over her inheritance shattered my bond with my siblings. Pride and anger erected walls between us, silencing our voices, stealing family gatherings, and robbing me of my grandchildren's laughter. This pain, sharper than my illness, gnawed at my soul, a constant ache I couldn't soothe. One grey morning, despair consumed me, and I resolved to end my suffering. I shuffled to the supermarket, my steps heavy, and bought a bottle of sleeping pills. The cashier, noting my age, assumed insomnia and handed them over without a glance. I returned home, the bottle cold in my hand, my heart torn between escape and fear. I sat at my kitchen table, the pills before me, my fingers trembling as I unscrewed the cap. Memories of my children's smiles, my siblings' voices, flashed through my mind, but the pain drowned them out. I raised the bottle, ready to swallow my release, when the doorbell rang, sharp and jarring. Startled, I set the pills down, my thoughts racing. Visitors were rare. Perhaps this was something urgent. I moved toward the stairs, my mind clouded, wondering who could be at my door after so long. The house was silent, save for the creak of my steps, the air heavy with my unspoken grief. Lost in thought, my foot slipped on the staircase, and I plummeted, my head striking the floor with a dull crack. Darkness swallowed me, the world fading into a void as my body lay still. I thought death would be gentle. I thought it would feel like falling asleep in God's embrace, surrounded by light and peace. Instead, my soul tore free from my body with a silent jolt, rising above the tiles soaked in my blood. I saw my limbs twisted unnaturally, my eyes still open but empty, and the air around me felt thick with finality. The world I knew began to blur, as if I stood between two realms, one familiar and one unrecognizable. My house was still there, the hallway lit by morning sun, but I felt no connection to it. I drifted through the front door, effortlessly, pulled by something unseen. Outside, I saw my sister and her young son walking up the path, their faces solemn yet unaware of the horror waiting inside. Later, she would tell me of a dream she had the night before. A glowing man had appeared, urging her to come see me, to forgive and be forgiven. At that moment, as I watched from the spirit world, I felt an ache deeper than any wound. Regret crushed me, knowing I had waited too long, and now the chance for reconciliation was gone. Without warning, the air around me shifted. A violent force yanked me downward, faster than falling, faster than thought. Light vanished as I plunged into suffocating blackness, thick and alive, pressing in on all sides. The stench of sulfur wrapped around me like smoke, choking my breathless spirit as I fell into the pit. I landed hard on a landscape that radiated pure malice. The ground beneath me was a field of blistering coals, glowing like embers in a dying fire. Rivers of bubbling blood ran through the cracks, their stench unbearable, their heat a torment to my every nerve. Each step scorched my feet, not with ordinary pain, but with a fire that dug into the marrow of my soul. Screams echoed across the plain, rising in endless waves, colliding with the clatter of chains and the screech of unseen machinery. The sky was a canvas of shadows, pierced only by lightning that revealed twisted faces in the distance. Before me stretched a road paved in scorched bones, crawling with the souls of the damned, their eyes hollow, their movements sluggish and broken. Demons emerged from the gloom, grotesque beyond imagination. Their skin was blackened like coal, cracked and oozing, their eyes twin pits of glowing red fury. Their mouths curled in cruel glee as they pointed at me, their voices sharp and mocking. One shouted with glee that I was theirs because I had held on to grudges. Its clawed hand gripped my arm, its touch like ice and fire, dragging me forward across the burning plain. I screamed, but no sound came out. The air was too thick, too poisoned by death and despair. Every breath stung like swallowing glass, every heartbeat echoed like a drumbeat of doom. The walls around the plain pulsed with black ooze, alive and breathing, sizzling where it met the molten rock. I saw souls everywhere, thousands, maybe millions. Their movements were slow, weighed down by invisible burdens. Some wept silently, their tears turning to steam before hitting the ground. Others raged, their fists clenched against a punishment they never thought would come. I searched my own heart for answers, desperate for some justification. I had prayed. I had gone to church. I had held my rosary with reverence. Yet here I was, no different from the others, surrounded by heat and hate. The demons laughed again, their voices grinding like broken stone, feeding on my confusion and fear. The ground beneath me cracked as I moved, sharp rocks slicing into my bare feet. Blood pooled around me, dark and thick, its smell a mixture of rot and smoke. I stumbled toward a figure in the distance, drawn by something in her presence. She stood still in the flames, her body trembling, her face solemn. As I approached her, each step more excruciating than the last, she turned to meet my eyes. There was no anger in her expression, only deep sorrow. Her gaze cut through the haze, seeing something in me I had yet to understand. Around us the screams never stopped, but her silence spoke louder than the fire. I felt the weight of my years. I remembered the fights with my family, the silence that followed, the bitter pride I clung to like armor. Her eyes seemed to plead with me, not to escape, but to understand. My heart pounded as I realized this was not a mistake. My presence in hell was no accident. The demons encircled us, their claws ready, their eyes gleaming with hunger. Their laughter returned, louder now, more vicious, celebrating my recognition of guilt. The ground groaned beneath me, heat radiating from the coals, the very air screaming with the torment of the lost. I saw a man nearby, babbling about betrayal, his face twisted in agony, his chains dragging behind him. The woman remained unmoved, her presence steady. Flames danced behind her, casting eerie patterns across her sorrow-filled face. I leaned closer, unable to speak, waiting for her to say what I needed to hear. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but firm, and in that moment I sensed it would reveal the reason for my damnation. My entire being braced for her words, for the truth that would shatter every illusion I had carried. Around us the horrors of hell intensified, but her presence held the power to pierce through it all. And in that breathless moment, as the fire surged and the shadows closed in, I understood that whatever she would say next would change everything. Amid the screams and roaring fire, I heard a voice. It was soft, strained, yet clear enough to cut through the chaos like a quiet bell in a storm. "We're Christians who never forgave," the woman said, her eyes dim with sorrow. Her words pierced me, striking deeper than any flame could ever reach. Her face flickered in the firelight, pale and gaunt, as if every tear she had never shed was carved into her expression. Around us, tormented souls twisted and cried out, their agony not born from violent sins, but from something more silent and insidious. She spoke of resentment and pride, of judgment disguised as righteousness. And suddenly I understood that the sin chaining me here had never felt like a sin at all. I remembered my siblings, the inheritance, the bitter arguments that ripped our family apart and left our hearts colder than any grave. What once was laughter at the dinner table turned into silence and silent doors, all because we refused to bend. I thought my anger was justified, but now I saw it for what it was, a rope around my soul. The woman explained that our sin was not in murder or theft, but in the quiet rot of unforgiveness. We sat in pews, whispered holy prayers, and lifted our hands in worship while carrying hatred in our hearts. We thought our devotion excused our bitterness, that our rituals could cover our resentment. But here, in this place of truth, all masks fell away. The air was thick with heat and sulfur, the ground alive with pulsing cracks of fire and blood. Demons lurked at the edges, watching with sick delight as realization settled into our broken hearts. I saw neighbors I had judged, friends I had criticized, wounds I had refused to let heal. My rosary felt heavy in my memory, not as a symbol of faith, but as a chain I had twisted tighter with every prayer said through clenched pride. A man nearby wailed into the flames, clutching his chest, muttering a name he had never forgiven. His agony echoed mine, a reflection of what I had become. I saw the same desperation in his eyes that I felt in my own soul. His torment was not from what had been done to him, but from what he had refused to release. The heat rose, curling around us like a living thing. I saw my siblings' faces again, not how they looked now, but how they once were, filled with joy and laughter. Every memory was a blade. I had watched our bonds decay, and I had done nothing to stop it. The woman turned her gaze to me once more. "Unforgiveness isn't weakness," she said. "It's the choice to hold poison in your heart, thinking it protects you, when it only destroys you." Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of judgment. Her sorrow wasn't just her own, it was mine too. All around us, the screams grew louder. I saw Christians like me, people who had lived clean lives on the surface, but nurtured bitterness in secret. They cried not just in pain, but in disbelief that this could be their fate. I saw myself in each one of them. The demons hissed and circled, their claws scraping the ground, their laughter cruel and hollow. The ground shifted beneath me, glowing red with coals and blood, searing my feet with every step. The woman's presence did not protect me, but it revealed the truth. Her words became a mirror that showed me every moment I had refused to forgive. I cried not just from the pain, but from the crushing weight of regret. I had chosen silence over peace, pride over reconciliation, and now I stood among the damned. Her voice returned, softer now but firm. "It is not too late to change," she whispered. "You are still listening. That means your heart can still move." In the depth of that hell, her words were the only light that remained. The flames curled higher, mocking my sorrow, yet something had changed. A crack had formed in the walls of my pride. It was small, but it was real. I looked at her one last time, and I saw no condemnation in her face, only grief. Her eyes said what her lips could not. "Remember this pain. Let it mark you. Let it move you to love." And somewhere in the distance, I felt the faintest tug of mercy. Just when I thought the flames would consume me forever, a sudden force surged beneath me. It was not fire or fear, but something gentle, almost invisible, lifting me from the scorched, crumbling ground of hell. The howls faded behind me like echoes from a nightmare, and I was rising higher, lighter with each breath. Then, the darkness cracked open, and light poured through like a flood of mercy. I emerged into a realm unlike anything I had ever known. The air was crisp, touched with the scent of rain and blossoms, as if all of creation had been washed clean. Under my feet was grass that shimmered like emerald silk, soft and cool, alive with a pulse I could feel in my bones. Above me stretched a sky painted with shifting hues of gold and rose, as if dawn had chosen never to end. In the midst of this breathtaking place stood a figure cloaked in radiance neither blinding nor harsh, but tender and full of strength. Though his face remained veiled in glory, his presence spoke louder than sight ever could. Love poured from him like sunlight on a cold soul, and though he had not said a word, I wept at the certainty that I was finally before Jesus. He knew me completely, yet welcomed me wholly. His voice did not pass through ears, but directly through the heart, like a song written just for me. "Diana," he said. And my name had never sounded so beautiful. "You are loved but wounded. You've held pain like a crown for too long." I could hardly breathe as he stepped closer. Forgiveness is not just for others, it is the freedom your soul longs for. Then he stretched out his hand, and I saw visions unroll before me like pages in the wind. My childhood, bright and vivid, came alive again. There I was, a little girl in a white dress, chasing my brothers and sisters through fields bathed in golden light. Our laughter danced on the wind like music, untouched by bitterness or grief. We were innocent, whole. Before the pride, before the fracture. The visions shifted, and I saw the future I had robbed myself of, grey-haired, surrounded by family at a long wooden table. Smiles, stories, warm bread and warm hearts. My hand reached out to my sisters. No lawyers, no bitterness, just love reawakened from its grave. Tears blurred the vision as Jesus whispered, "This is what could be, if you choose it." Heaven sang around us. Rivers ran with light, their waters whispering peace to every soul that chose mercy. Trees stood tall, their leaves shimmering like diamonds, praising their Creator with every sway. I heard the harmony of voices, countless voices rising in worship, a sound so beautiful it cracked open the hardness I hadn't even known still remained in me. The Lord walked with me, step by step, through gardens that seemed to grow brighter with each act of surrender in my heart. He pointed to the flowers and said, "Each one blooms because it yields to the light. So must you." I nodded, unable to speak. My soul was unraveling in his presence, letting go of years of pain, pride, and silent anger. He placed his hand on my heart. I felt every wall inside me collapse like dust in the wind. "Forgive them," he said gently. "Not because they asked, but because you were not made to carry chains." His light poured into the cracks of my soul, and I knew this was the moment my eternity began to shift. He showed me others' souls that had chosen bitterness and how it clung to them like rot. They had worn righteousness as armor but carried daggers in their hearts. "Even the devout may fall," he warned. "Not by what they say, but by what they withhold." Grace. His gaze was tender, but it pierced me with truth. I fell to my knees on the soft earth of heaven, and I wept not for fear this time, but from the unbearable beauty of undeserved grace. Jesus knelt beside me, wiped a tear from my cheek, and whispered, "There is still time, Diana. Go, rebuild, love." His words were a seed planted in my chest, and I knew it would bloom for the rest of my life. The light around us pulsed like a heartbeat, each beat a song of second chances. The sky shimmered with colors language has no name for, and I saw angels moving like wind across mountain tops of light. The peace here was not stillness, it was purpose, glowing in every corner, in every breath. I belonged, but I was not meant to stay. Jesus took my hand one final time and said, "This is your message. Forgiveness is the bridge. Walk it, and lead others across." Then the ground began to fade beneath me. The flowers, the rivers, the singing all softened into a single note, like the closing of a symphony. The light dimmed. And I was falling, but not into hell. This time I was falling into my second chance. Before taking me further, the radiant figure paused and placed his hand gently upon my chest. His touch was warm and steady, like the comforting hand of a father reminding a child of her worth. "Let me show you what ensnares many souls in their later years," he said, his voice as soft as a breeze, but sharp enough to pierce bone and spirit. In an instant, the light of heaven faded, and I was swept into a new vision, one that chilled me more than fire ever could. I found myself standing on a barren plain, vast and lifeless, cloaked beneath a sky heavy with unspoken grief. The land was cracked and grey, the air dry and sour, as if hope itself had evaporated from this place long ago. Shadows stretched long and heavy across the earth, and there was no sun, only a dim, metallic glow that offered no warmth. It was a world not of punishment, but of emptiness, a mirror to the souls trapped within it. All around me were people, countless in number, most with silver hair and faces carved by time. Some wore hospital gowns, others business suits. Many held framed photographs close to their chests, like shields against regret. None spoke. They wandered slowly, bound by faintly glowing cords wrapped tightly around their feet, their hands, their hearts. On each cord, a word pulsed softly: bitterness, pride, self-righteousness, unforgiveness. Their steps were labored, like they were wading through invisible chains. Their eyes dull and weary, spoke of memories they couldn't forget and apologies they never gave. "Why are they all older?" I asked, my voice catching in my throat. The figure beside me answered with sorrow, "Because with age they confused years with wisdom and allowed their hearts to harden." I watched a silver-haired woman gripping rosary beads so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I forgave him, but he never said sorry." At that moment, the cord labeled pride tightened around her chest, and she fell to her knees, unable to rise. The beads slipped from her hand and vanished into the dust. Then I saw a man dressed in Sunday best, Bible clenched in both fists. His face bore a look of perpetual judgment, his mouth tight with unspoken accusations. The cord of self-righteousness bound his shoulders, making each step heavier than the last. His eyes scanned others with contempt, but never once turned inward. All around me I saw believers, people like me who had once prayed fervently, filled pews, quoted scripture. But their faith had become a mask, a performance that hid the decay underneath. They had aged, yes, but they had not grown. Instead, they carried old wounds like medals, wearing their grievances with pride. "These are the silent sins," the voice said, "not shouted in the streets, but nurtured in secret, beneath pious words and religious rituals." I felt as if I were walking through a graveyard of living souls, every footstep a whisper of too late. No one screamed here. Only sighs, long, tired sighs of what was never forgiven. A woman clutched a photo of her son, whom she had not spoken to in 20 years. Her face was set like stone, her jaw clenched, her eyes hollow with waiting for an apology that never came. The cord of unforgiveness wrapped like a serpent around her legs, dragging her slowly into the dry, cracked earth. "Forgiveness doesn't wait for justice," the voice echoed. "It breathes even when others stay silent." The vision deepened. I saw pews filled with these very souls during their lifetimes, bowed heads, folded hands, mouths reciting prayers. But their hearts were locked away, chained by old offenses, grudges, jealousies, comparisons. Their religion was clean, but their hearts were cluttered. I turned to the figure, weeping. Why didn't they see? Why didn't we see? His reply was mournful yet firm. Because many believe faith is a wall to hide behind, not a path to walk humbly. They think attendance is repentance, and ritual is love. Each word struck like thunder across the plain. Suddenly a bright light flared in the distance. A man, grey and wrinkled, broke free. The cords snapped, one by one, as he cried aloud, "I forgive you, even if you never knew you hurt me." His face lifted, eyes alight, and he ran not with the strength of his body, but the freedom of his soul. The chains shattered with each step. His joy rippled like wind across the plain. Others began to stir. One woman dropped her pride and whispered, "I miss you, sister." Her cord loosened. A man released decades of bitterness with a single word, "Enough." The plain trembled gently, not in destruction but in possibility. "This is why I show you, Diana," the figure said, his voice now a steady flame. "The older the heart, the harder it clings. But also, the more powerful its freedom when it lets go." I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by the weight of the truth and the beauty of the release. The barren plain faded, but its warning remained etched in my soul like fire on stone. I had been one of them. And I still could be unless I returned to forgive, to heal, to speak. As light embraced me again, I knew my calling. To break my own chains and help others loosen theirs. Especially those over 50, those who think it's too late to change, too old to reconcile, too righteous to repent. I carried the vision with me, a flame that would never die. I had seen where hard hearts end, and I had seen what love, even late in life, can redeem. He led me from the warmth of heaven's fields into a radiant hall, vast and breathtaking, unlike anything I'd ever seen. Towering shelves reached into eternity, lined with books that shimmered with living light, each one softly glowing like a soul still whispering its story. The air was warm and alive, filled with the scent of jasmine and old parchment, as if truth itself had a fragrance. This was the library of life, where every choice, every act of love or hate, was carefully written by the hand of eternity. We walked in silence at first, the sound of my steps softened by golden floors that glowed beneath me. The shelves whispered with the energy of memory, joy and grief, regret and redemption. every life preserved in pages that pulsed like a beating heart. My guide stopped before a single book, its spine etched with my name, and gently opened it. The pages came alive, revealing not words but moments, flashes of my life, raw and unfiltered. I saw myself as a young girl, laughing with my siblings under a summer sun, our feet muddy, our hearts free. Then came the shift, arguments, prideful silences, the day we stopped speaking. Each wound I carried, each grudge I fed, appeared as dark stains across the pages, dimming the light within the book. I watched, heart heavy, as memories became marks, beautiful beginnings turned bitter by pride. He spoke then, his voice soft yet mighty. Forgiveness is not a gift to others, it is the key that unlocks your soul. His words echoed through the shelves, vibrating like a holy wind, stirring the air with sacred urgency. The book turned its own pages, revealing others, men and women who had chosen to forgive, their hearts glowing like stars. I saw their chains break, their burdens lifted, their families restored with a single decision of mercy. The light from their pages danced, casting golden rays across the library floor, illuminating the power of grace. I saw a mother embrace her runaway son, an old friend reconciling at a deathbed, a husband letting go of betrayal to love again. Each act was simple, yet eternal, echoing beyond time into the very heart of heaven. The shelves sang with these stories, their melody gentle, like the sound of healing rain on dry earth. You see, he continued, placing his hand gently over my book, pride binds but love releases. His eyes searched mine, not with judgment, but longing, as if urging me to see what I already knew. Many live long lives, Diana, but never truly live. They carry chains of resentment until their final breath, mistaking silence for peace and pride for righteousness. I turned the page and saw myself refusing to call my sister, saw the moment I chose to stay, angry rather than reach out. It was such a small act, and yet its ripple had grown across years, becoming a wall. I wept not just for myself, but for all those whose books glowed dimly, their lights strangled by years of unspoken pain. I realized then that heaven remembers not only our sins, but the healing we refused to begin. The figure pointed to a nearby shelf, where another book glowed more brightly than the rest. He opened it to reveal a woman much like me, choosing to forgive her sister after 3 decades apart. The scene unfolded like a sunrise, her eyes filled with tears, their hands trembling as they embraced, the silence finally broken. "This," he said, "is what your story could become." Hope surged through me. The idea that my future pages were still unwritten, that the ink of heaven could be changed by a single choice today, filled me with awe. My heart ached for those who waited too long, their chapters closing with love left unsaid. But mine was still open, still alive. "The world thinks forgiveness is weakness," he said, "but in my kingdom, it is strength beyond measure." The books around me pulsed brighter, and I could feel the weight of their truth pressing on my spirit. These weren't just stories, they were warnings, invitations, bridges back to love. I knew, without a doubt, that I was meant to carry these lessons back. As he closed my book, the warmth of his presence filled the room like sunlight after a storm. "Tell them," he said, his voice now a firm command. "Tell the old and the bitter. Tell the ones who think time makes them right. Tell them their books are not yet finished." The light in the hall intensified, wrapping around me like a robe of gold. I turned one last time to look at the shelves, at the stories I would never forget. Some were filled with light, others still aching for redemption. But all of them held the same truth: it's never too late to rewrite your ending. The library faded, but its wisdom did not. I carried it within me, a fire that would not go out. I had seen the record of life, and I had seen the mercy of the one who reads every page. Now, it was my turn to write a new chapter, one filled with love, forgiveness, and light. I woke to the sterile scent of disinfectant and the steady beep of machines, their rhythm sharp yet strangely reassuring. The hospital lights glowed dimly overhead, soft halos in a world that felt foreign and fragile. My body was weak, every breath shallow, but I was alive, and that, in itself, was a miracle no doctor could fully explain. My sister sat beside me, her face drawn with worry and love, her hand holding mine as if afraid to let go of this second chance. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks as we embraced, our arms wrapping around years of silence, resentment, and wounds left untended. That hug, our first in over a decade, was not just a reunion, it was a resurrection. Something holy moved between us, a warmth deeper than blood, more enduring than time. We wept together not from sadness, but from the long-awaited release of pain that had chained our hearts. As I lay there, recovering, I told her everything. I described the descent into hell, the flames, the chains, the cries of those who could no longer escape. I spoke of heaven's brilliance, of the man made of light who had lifted me from the pit, and of the sacred truth he had burned into my soul. Unforgiveness destroys the soul from within. Her eyes filled with awe as she shared her own dream, the vision of a glowing man who told her to come to me before it was too late. We knew then with absolute certainty it was Jesus who had brought us back together. The doctors were amazed. 10 minutes without a heartbeat, a fall that should have left me broken, and yet I had no brain damage, no internal bleeding. They called it medically unexplainable, but I knew better. I had died, and by mercy alone I had returned, not just to breathe again, but to live for something greater than myself. In those sterile hospital walls, I felt more alive than I had in years. The silence no longer felt empty, it felt full, pregnant with purpose. My sister and I spoke for hours, pouring out every hurt, every regret, every unsaid apology. Words once kept in darkness now bathed in the light of grace, healing wounds we thought would scar forever. I looked out the window and saw her son, laughing, chasing butterflies on the lawn. My heart swelled with hope. I hadn't just come back for myself. I had returned for my family, for the chance to rebuild what had crumbled under years of silence. This was more than recovery, it was redemption in motion. The nurses noticed something different. Some sat at the foot of my bed during night shifts asking questions about what I'd seen, their skepticism slowly melting into reverence. One cried quietly as I spoke of souls who screamed for forgiveness too late. I realized then that my mission had already begun, right there in that room, one heart at a time. A priest came to visit, a man of quiet wisdom and eyes that had seen both miracles and sorrow. He listened carefully, nodding as I spoke, affirming the weight of what I'd witnessed with scriptures and silent prayers. In the small hospital chapel, I knelt, still sore, still healing, but with a spirit blazing brighter than ever before. That sacred space, filled with candlelight and whispers of incense, became the altar where I vowed to never let this message go unheard. When the day came for me to leave, the sun bathed the sidewalk in gold, and the breeze felt like a whisper from heaven itself. My sister walked beside me, our pace slow, our bond unbreakable. The world outside hadn't changed, but I had. I had crossed from death to life, from pride to forgiveness, and from silence to testimony. I walked not as a patient released from care, but as a messenger sent with purpose. I had looked into hell and tasted heaven. I had heard the cries of the damned and the songs of the redeemed. And now, I carried both within me, a flame of warning and a light of hope for a world too busy, too proud, and too wounded to see how close eternity truly is. After I was discharged from the hospital, the vision I had witnessed would not release me. It echoed in my every breath, a divine urgency pressing on my soul like a heartbeat. I knew I couldn't delay reconciliation, couldn't be a vague intention. It had to begin now. So I reached for the phone, my fingers trembling, and called my siblings, voices I hadn't heard in over 10 years. The line was quiet at first, unsure, like standing before a locked door with no key. But when I invited them to our parents' old home for dinner, a place filled with both joy and ghosts, no one refused. Something in my voice, or perhaps something in their dreams, opened a path. That house, once a cradle of laughter and then a battlefield of silence, would become holy ground once again. We gathered that evening under a roof that had seen both our innocence and our falling out. The air was heavy with things left unsaid, yet there was warmth, a sacred discomfort that meant healing was near. The scent of roasted chicken, buttered bread, and herb-laced vegetables filled the room like a memory reborn. Our old dining table creaked beneath the weight of the meal and our hopes. At first we spoke through half smiles and guarded glances, each of us feeling around the edges of forgiveness like blind men in a room of glass. But I could not hold it in any longer. I confessed my pride, my bitterness, my silence. The words cracked something open, and suddenly tears flowed not just from me, but from them too. My brother, once so stern, reached across the table and grasped my hand. His eyes shimmered with years of guilt, and he whispered, "I'm sorry." My sister choked on her words before they came out, but when they did, they melted the ice between us. "I've missed you more than I could bear." In those confessions, something broke and something holy rushed in. We laid the inheritance feud to rest that night. No lawyers, no courtrooms, just paper and ink and 3 trembling signatures written with hands that used to fight over toys. The wealth that had torn us apart became meaningless in the face of the love we had rediscovered. The house felt different now, lighter, warmer, alive. Laughter returned, hesitant at first, like a song half remembered. But it grew, stronger and purer, echoing through the halls, like it had when we were children. The kitchen became a place of stories again. The living room is a sanctuary. The pain we carried for years began to dissolve under the gentle heat of reconciliation. The transformation didn't stop there. My grandchildren ran through the hallways, their footsteps like music on wood, their joy a testament to what had been restored. We began to gather every week, Sunday lunches, birthday dinners, quiet evenings with coffee and prayer. The walls that once heard only silence now sang with love. Word spread. I began to tell my story not out of pride, but out of purpose. Neighbors leaned in with wide eyes, some wiping away tears, others clinging to the hope that they too could mend what had broken. I spoke at churches, at women's groups, even to strangers at grocery stores. And each time I felt that same fire inside the flame Jesus lit when he lifted me out of hell. The table we reconciled had became more than furniture. It became an altar, a symbol of what's possible when we choose love over pride, mercy over memory. Flowers from my garden filled the vases nearby, their fragrance mingling with the scent of meals and prayers. And in that atmosphere, healing became not just possible, it became contagious. Together we returned to church, side by side in the pews where our parents once prayed. Our voices blended in hymns, trembling at first, then rising boldly with each verse. The stained glass windows caught the sun, painting the sanctuary with light, reminding me of heaven. When I spoke of my vision, heads bowed, hearts opened, and I knew I was not just telling a story, I was passing on a warning wrapped in grace. Pride had almost cost me everything, but mercy had reclaimed me. Now I lived to pass that mercy on. The hell I'd seen was real, but so was the love that rescued me, and I would never stop speaking of it. My siblings and I became witnesses not just to each other, but to anyone burdened by resentment and division. Our story, once fractured, was whole again. And the love that filled our family's home was no longer fragile, it was fortified by forgiveness. This was not just reunion, it was resurrection. Each day now feels like a new page in a redeemed life. I see my grandchildren's laughter as a daily miracle, my siblings' smiles as proof that nothing is too broken for God to heal. The past remains, but it no longer defines us. And I, Diana, once lost to pride, now live with a heart set ablaze to warn, to reconcile, and to carry the banner of forgiveness until my last breath. Diana's testimony shakes us with its raw power, exposing the sin of unforgiveness that threatens countless Christians, especially those over 50. Her journey through hell's horrors and heaven's promise reveals that forgiveness is strength, a gift that frees the heart from eternal chains. We have one life to love and reconcile, for as Jesus taught, if you do not forgive, how can your Father in heaven forgive you? Share your struggles in the comments, release your grudges today, and subscribe for the next testimony, unveiling why some experience near-death visions or see angels after cardiac arrest, while others do not. A mystery that will deepen your faith and stir your soul. Many of our listeners have shared a common question. Why is it that they also pray? Their lives have faced many hardships, even accidents, yet they've never had a near-death experience or even a fleeting encounter with a saving angel. Could it be that God chooses some and leaves others behind? If you've ever silently held that question in your heart, or carried doubts you've never dared to speak, leave a comment below, because sometimes that simple act may be the very door through which you receive an answer you never imagined. And today, you will hear the letter of a woman who once believed God was silent with her, until the day she had an accident. Her soul was pulled into a realm far beyond the concepts of time and space. There she encountered a sacred being, an angel who carried the answer she had been quietly searching for her entire life. Stay until the end, because what she was shown may lead you to reflect deeply on your own journey of faith. Welcome to Eternal Bible Stories, where true near-death experiences are shared to awaken faith and illuminate the soul. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now, and don't forget to leave your name and the city you're watching from so we can pray for you. Now, listen closely to her testimony. My name is Pony. I live in a quiet little town called Maple Hill, nestled between the rolling green hills and ancient maple forests of Pennsylvania, and this is the most unforgettable experience of my 68 years of life. It was supposed to be just another beautiful spring morning in April. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, and I was driving to my grandson Tim's 5th birthday party. I remember checking the rearview mirror to make sure the birthday cake was still sitting perfectly inside the box on the back seat. The radio was playing one of the old hymns I used to sing in church when I was a little girl. I hummed along with a smile, my heart full of gratitude for still being able to be part of these precious family moments, to witness my grandchildren growing up day by day. That happiness made me completely miss the truck speeding toward me. It came rushing from the right side of the intersection, far too fast, and in that moment, in the blink of an eye, everything shattered like glass in my hands. The last thing I remember before everything changed was the screeching of tires and the sensation of my car spinning out of control. Then suddenly everything became silent. Not the kind of quiet you experience in a peaceful room, but a different kind of stillness, as if sound itself had never existed. I slowly became aware that I was no longer inside my body. There was no more heaviness, no more pain or confinement like I had known in life. Instead, there was an indescribable sense of relief, as if I had finally removed a pair of tight shoes I'd been wearing all my life. Every movement felt smooth and effortless, as though I were gliding through space without the need for muscles or breath. I didn't see my hands or my body as I once knew them, but I was still very much alive, completely conscious and aware of every detail around me. Everything was unusually quiet. There was no wind, no traffic, no familiar noise at all, but the silence didn't frighten me. It felt like standing inside an empty cathedral, where everything is so sacred and still that you don't even dare to breathe too loudly. Light surrounded me like a warm, living ocean. It didn't blind me, but instead it was gentle and full of life. The more I immersed myself in that light, the more I sensed something, or rather someone, drawing near. Not with footsteps, not with any physical form, but with a holiness so pure that it silenced everything inside me. I didn't see his face, but I sensed it was the Lord. My soul recognized him the way a child instantly knows its mother's embrace in a crowd. As I tried to grasp the meaning of where I was and waited for him to reach out his hand to me, a strange feeling slowly arose within me, as if I was no longer alone. I began to sense a presence right beside me, not something I could touch or hear in the usual way, but something deeper, something that transcended all the physical senses I had ever known. When I directed my attention toward it, though not by physically turning, as my body no longer seemed bound by earthly limitations, I encountered a sight that stirred my heart. It was a being that I can only describe using the most beautiful words I know, a creature of light, radiant and pure, as if woven from the gentlest rays of the universe. But this was unlike any angel or messenger I had ever imagined from fairy tales or pictured while listening to childhood hymns. This being carried a powerful, profound presence, as if it were part of the very essence of life itself, and, more wondrously, it seemed able to see straight into my soul. It knew every thought, every feeling, every question in my mind, even before I could form them into words, a connection far beyond language, as if my mind had merged with a higher intelligence. Connie, the being, spoke, not with a voice echoing through the air like human speech, but more like a pure stream of thought flowing directly into the depths of my consciousness, clear and warm, carrying with it an indescribable comfort. Always by my side? But why had I never seen it before? I wondered silently, yet before this being it was as though every thought I had was laid bare. You wonder why some people see us and others do not, the being of light said, gently yet with a resonance that felt like each word touched the deepest part of my soul. Its voice wasn't accusatory, nor was it interrogative. It felt like an invitation, as if a door to an unseen realm was being opened before me, leading to a question I had long avoided or never had the courage to face. At that moment, I wasn't standing or lying down. I was floating in a space without gravity, without direction, yet full of presence. And in that majestic silence, I suddenly realized that I had never truly asked myself that question. Why do some people see angels, experience miracles, while others, like me, live a quiet life of faith without any clear supernatural sign? But when that question was spoken aloud by the being of light, it was like a key unlocking a door that had been shut in my soul for decades. Memories I thought were buried somewhere in my mind came rushing back, piece by piece, in vivid detail. I remembered conversations with friends, with loved ones, about the experiences they had shared, the miraculous light that appeared beside their mother's hospital bed, a mysterious whisper in the middle of the night when they were about to give up everything, or an invisible force that pulled them back from the edge of death. And then I thought about myself, about the nights I prayed alone in tears but only heard the wind blowing through the window, about the days I knelt in church, yearning for a touch, a sign, even just a passing breeze or a strange light, but all there was silence. No supernatural image, no voice from heaven, only a smoldering faith, smoldering to the point that even I sometimes wasn't sure how much of it I still held on to. I began to wonder, had I been missing something? Was I not good enough? Not faithful enough? Or was there something in me that made me unworthy to see what others had seen? Suddenly I understood that this wasn't just a passing question, but a question that had silently grown within me my entire life. Why are some people granted deep spiritual experiences, clear encounters with the invisible realm, while others, despite their belief or longing, seem to be left in silence? Why do some get to see angels standing by their bedside, carrying light and peace in their final moments, while others pass away alone, without any sign from the other side to soothe their fear? That question, now stirred by the being of light, didn't just stop at curiosity. It became a burning flame within me, an intense need to understand this mysterious difference among people, not to judge or compare, but to discover the deeper meaning behind it. And as I stood before that being of light, I felt that the answer was not meant for me alone, but was part of a greater truth, a truth I was about to be led to uncover. What happened next went far beyond anything I had ever imagined. The being of light, my guiding angel, raised its hand as if signaling, and immediately we began to move through what I can only describe as layers of spiritual reality. The space around me seemed to dissolve, replaced by mystical scenes, each layer unveiling a profound truth about the nature of the soul and its ability to perceive the invisible world. The first layer appeared like a massive cosmic tapestry, woven with billions of small, shimmering lights. They weren't stars, but rather living, moving points of light, and they seemed to possess their own awareness. "These are souls," the angel communicated, not through words, but through deep, intuitive understanding. Each soul vibrates at a unique frequency, like notes in an eternal symphony. I was stunned to realize some of these lights flared brightly as they neared regions filled with spiritual presence, almost as if they were being activated by a divine source of energy. Others remained dim, showing no change. The angel helped me understand that this wasn't because one soul was better than another, but rather a matter of readiness and timing in each soul's spiritual journey. Every soul has its own rhythm for growth, and no one is left behind. "Look more closely," the angel said. The voice didn't echo as sound, but instead flowed like a stream into the depths of my spirit. Immediately the scene around me shifted. I no longer sensed time as I had on earth. There was no before or after. I felt as if I were standing outside of time itself, in a place where moments from many different lives unfolded all at once, like overlapping screens blending together yet still perfectly distinct in every detail. I saw a young mother kneeling in her small old kitchen. The kitchen had stained walls and a dim yellow light, but it was full of the warmth of family. She knelt on the hard tile floor, her hands clenched tightly, eyes shut, praying with a desperation and earnestness that pierced the air. Beside her was a cradle where her little child lay curled up, pale from a high fever. The mother didn't know that surrounding her at that very moment was a circle of angels, beings of light, silently standing with their wings extended. They didn't speak, they didn't intervene immediately, but their presence filled the room like a sacred mist, radiating peace, protection, and a love far beyond anything I had ever known. I could feel their energy, a gentle yet unwavering breeze encircling the mother, keeping her faith from crumbling, even as a storm raged inside her heart. Then the image faded and shifted to another scene. This time, a quiet room where an elderly man was lying on a hospital bed. The afternoon light streamed through a small window, falling gently across his face. Everything was still. No more machines, no more sounds from nurses or doctors. Just him, alone. But he was not truly alone. I could clearly see his eyes open wide, not in fear, but in profound awe. In those aged eyes was a strange joy, as if he had just seen something he had waited for his entire life. Before him the beings of light appeared, not with sharp human forms, but radiating a pure beauty, like living columns of light smiling at him. They didn't need to speak. Their eyes and gestures said it all. "We have come to take you home." One of them extended a hand, and I saw the elderly man struggle to lift his own to meet it, trembling from weakness, yet filled with determination. It was not a handshake between strangers. It was a reunion between a soul and heaven. In that moment, I understood something profound. Death. The very thing humans fear most, for those who trust in the Lord, is actually the doorway to the most beautiful return. I couldn't take my eyes off those two images, the praying woman and the dying man, and I felt the presence of God in both, a presence that wasn't loud, wasn't forceful, but filled with power and love. At that moment I began to understand. The moments that seem most private, most lonely to us as human beings, are often the moments heaven is closest, but we don't always see it. Not because heaven is absent, but because our spiritual eyes are not yet ready to open. And in both of those scenes, I saw one thing clearly. Faith, no matter how small, can draw heaven near. I understood that some people haven't seen it yet because their souls are not yet strong enough to receive the full truth. Just like a flower needs time to bloom, the soul needs time to open to the light, and when the right moment comes, God will open their eyes. At the right time, in the right way, and always with perfect love. During the journey through the layers of spiritual reality, I was brought to a revelation that deeply moved my heart. A truth that has always existed around us, yet most of us never realize. It was the unceasing presence of angels and spiritual beings, those who serve God in the work of protecting, guiding, and uplifting humanity every second, every minute. I was shown countless life moments happening simultaneously. One person was driving in heavy rain, anxious about an important appointment. Another was standing outside a cancer patient's room, trembling at the news. And others, sitting in darkness, alone, empty. No matter where they were, whether they believed or not, I saw the angels beside them. Some stood like guards. Some gently laid a hand on a human shoulder to bring peace. Others seemed to whisper something into their minds, words of encouragement that couldn't be heard with the ears but touched the soul. Then the being of light led me to a sacred scene. A middle-aged woman was crying, her head resting on a table, whispering a faint prayer for her wayward son. Surrounding her were 3 angels, each placing a hand on her, interceding with her, and the gentle light from them seemed to be healing her despair itself. In that moment I realized, not a single prayer is ever forgotten. The being of light paused, then softly said, "Remember Job." Instantly I understood. Job, the righteous man, had no idea of the fierce spiritual battle taking place in the heavenly realms on his behalf. In the same way, millions of people today are walking through spiritual battles, but they are not alone. Angels have been and are fighting for them, needing no thanks, no recognition. I was shown a multitude of cries for help, whispers in the middle of the night, sobs too broken for words, eyes lifted toward heaven in desperation. All of them were received in the spiritual realm. These pleas did not vanish into nothingness. They became light, creating ripples that reached the angels and activated divine actions in ways we cannot see or fully comprehend. What brought me to tears, though not in the physical sense, was when I was shown the guardian angels. No longer a vague concept or blind belief. I witnessed them, truly existing, truly near. Each person has at least one such angel, specially assigned from the moment they are born. These angels know us better than we know ourselves, and they work tirelessly, day and night, guiding us toward the glorious destiny God has prepared. I saw how they worked through what we often call gut feeling or intuition. A man stood hesitantly on the side of the street, about to step off the curb while the light was still red. A voiceless message echoed in his mind. Wait a little longer. He stopped, and just seconds later a car sped by at a reckless pace. His life was saved, without him ever realizing he had just been divinely guided. Guardian angels do not force. They never interfere with human free will. But they warn, remind, and gently nudge. And if we learn to listen to those small urgings, even if they seem like vague feelings, our lives will begin to change. I was also shown how angels coordinate with one another like a mighty team. It's not just individual guardian angels, but also other angels sent specifically for certain moments. When a person is undergoing a great trial, when they pray with desperation, or when they're about to take a pivotal step in their spiritual journey. These angels, like silent companions, help open sacred doors that lead to healing, awakening, and transformation. I stood silently amid that vision, realizing that most of us go through our entire lives without ever knowing just how deeply we've been loved and protected. But whether we realize it or not, the angels keep working without ceasing, because the love of God is not dependent on our awareness. The being then showed me something about the power of prayer that left me utterly amazed. I saw that every sincere prayer created ripples in the spiritual realm, like dropping a stone into a still pond. These ripples interacted with other prayers and with God's divine plan in ways far beyond human imagination, forming a breathtaking symphony of divine activity. I saw prayers as waves of light emanating from the hearts of people on earth, rising upward and creating swirling, ever-moving patterns in the spiritual skies. Some prayers were faint, like a whisper, others thundered like a roar, but all of them left an imprint. They never disappeared. Every sincere prayer, no matter how small, sent out spiritual ripples. Just like when you toss a pebble into calm water, the ripples expand, intersecting, resonating with other prayers, forming a divine harmony that only God can orchestrate. I was shown that sometimes when we believe our prayers have been ignored, in truth they are being heard and answered, just in a way our earthly eyes cannot yet see, or our hearts are not yet ready to comprehend. The being spoke to me, not with words, but with a profound transfer of understanding. God's timing is perfect. His way of responding is precise, even when it does not align with human expectation. One of the most profound revelations came when I was shown that our ability to perceive angels and spiritual reality is often connected to our willingness to trust without needing to see. The being showed me that faith itself creates a kind of spiritual receptor within our soul, making us more able to perceive spiritual realities when they are revealed to us. I was then shown something about spiritual warfare that gave me a new understanding of why some people may be prevented from seeing angels. Sometimes, I learned, spiritual battles are being fought on our behalf that we are not meant to see, so that our peace may be protected. The being showed me how the angels work tirelessly to shield us from spiritual attacks that we aren't even aware of. Like loyal soldiers, they stand guard for us, pushing back dangers we may never even know existed. I was shown that our guardian angels sometimes work through other people to help us. The person who appears at just the right moment, with exactly the right words or help, I came to understand, is often responding to the subtle guidance of their own guardian angel to meet our need. The being explained that this is why kindness to strangers is so important. We never know when we might be entertaining angels without realizing it, or when we ourselves might be used as an instrument of an angel to help someone else. I was then shown something about the role of angels in our death that moved me deeply. No one, I learned, ever dies alone. Even when no other person is present, the angels are always there, ready to bring God's children home. The being showed me how these angels work to comfort both the dying and their loved ones, often without anyone realizing they're there. They serve souls on both sides of the veil of death, helping to ease the transition for everyone involved. I was shown that angels sometimes work through our memory, bringing to mind the exact scripture, song, or word of encouragement we need in the moment. These are not just random memories, but carefully arranged moments of spiritual support. The being explained that this is why it's so important to fill our minds with good things. They become the storehouse from which angels can draw to strengthen and uplift us in times of need. I was then shown why some people have more vivid spiritual experiences than others. It is not because they are more special or more loved by God. Rather, these experiences are given as gifts, not just for the individual, but for the benefit of others. Some people are chosen to be witnesses, to share their experiences and strengthen the faith of others. The being explained that sharing these experiences carries a great responsibility. I understood that it is not meant to prove anything, but to bring hope and point to a greater truth about God's love and presence in everyone's life. The being then showed me something that helped me understand why some people have near-death experiences while others do not. I saw that these experiences are carefully arranged for specific purposes within God's grand design. Some people are given these experiences to share them with others, some to change their own lives, and some to bring comfort to those grieving the loss of a loved one. But what truly amazed me was seeing that each person's journey is uniquely designed to draw them closer to God in the way that is best for them. Some need dramatic experiences, while others grow through steady, quiet faith. No path is better than another, They are simply different routes to the same destination. The being explained that this is why some people see different things during their near-death experiences. Each person is shown what they need to see and what they are able to process at that specific point in their spiritual journey. All of it is part of God's perfect plan for each individual soul. I was then shown something about the timing of spiritual experiences that helped me understand why some people seem to have more experiences than others. Each person's spiritual journey, I learned, has its own perfect timing, arranged by God's wisdom for their greatest good. The being showed me that sometimes what we perceive as a lack of spiritual experience is actually a gift, a season designed to strengthen our faith through trust rather than. These periods that may feel like spiritual silence are in fact times of deep inner growth. I was shown how our relationship with God influences our ability to perceive angels and other spiritual realities. The closer we draw to God through prayer, worship, and obedience, the more naturally we become able to perceive spiritual realities when they are revealed to us. The being explained that this is why some people seem to have a natural sensitivity to the spiritual realm. They have cultivated this ability through a consistent walk with God, often without even realizing it. Just as my mind was still overflowing with the wonders that had just been revealed, I felt an invisible force, not forceful, but undeniably clear, pulling me away from that realm of light. I didn't want to leave. Every thread of light there seemed to contain knowledge, love, and the true essence of life in a way I had never known before. But deep down I knew that my time there had come to an end. The being of light, my companion, my teacher, and my guide throughout the journey, looked at me with eyes as gentle as a father's and said, "Remember, Pony, what you have seen is not just for you. Share it with others. But remember that the journey towards spiritual vision is unique for each soul. Trust God's timing." Those words felt etched into my heart, becoming a mission I could never refuse. Then suddenly I was pulled back. There was a jolt, not painful but heavy, as my soul re-entered my body. I opened my eyes and found myself lying in a hospital room, surrounded by medical equipment, the steady beeping of monitors, and the stunned faces of doctors and nurses. One of them said, "We can't believe this. You were without a heartbeat for nearly 9 minutes. No brain damage, no coma, nothing at all." What amazed me even more was that I remembered everything I had seen, every scene, every word, every feeling. Nothing had faded. 4 years have passed since that fateful day. I still remember the moment I arrived at my grandson Tim's birthday party, even though I was a little late. But the boy had waited patiently for me. He told everyone to wait until I got there. None of them knew that I had just returned from a journey beyond the veil of life and death, carrying a message, not to boast, but to awaken. So Pony's letter comes to an end. You see, whether we can see them or not, angels are always working in our lives. Some of us are given the ability to see them for specific purposes in God's plan, while others are called to walk by faith, not by sight. No path is better than the other. They are simply different ways in which God works in our lives. The most important thing I learned is that God's love touches each one of us, whether we can see the angels He sends or not. Every person is precious to Him, and He works in every life in the way that is perfectly suited for that individual. So, if you've never seen an angel, don't be discouraged. They are there, working on your behalf, whether you can see them or not. And if you've been blessed with visions or spiritual encounters, remember that these gifts are not meant to make you feel special, but to help you encourage others and share God's love. In the end, what matters most is not whether we can see angels, but that we know and trust in God, the one who sends them. Because each of us, whether we realize it or not, is part of His great plan, watched over and cared for with a love deeper and more real than anything we can imagine. And that, my friends, is the most wonderful discovery of all. Share your thoughts below in the comments, or let us know where you're listening from, so that at the very least God knows this message has reached His children. And don't forget to hit subscribe to continue journeying with eternal Bible stories, where true testimonies are shared not just to be heard, but to heal and bring you closer to God. Thank you for listening. May this truth remain in your heart, and may the grace of God guide your steps from this moment on.